Learn English through story. The Traveler in the Merchant Steppe. Long ago, in a prosperous town nestled between rolling hills and a flowing river, there lived a merchant named Davian. Known for his wealth and sharp business acumen, he was a figure of admiration and respect. Yet, despite his riches, Davian was a man driven by ambition, his eyes always on the next deal, the next fortune. He believed that success meant accumulating wealth, no matter the cost. One day, a stranger arrived in the town, a traveler who went by the name of Callan. He was a man of simple means, with dusty boots and a weathered cloak. Unlike the townspeople who admired wealth and status, Callan was content with life's simple pleasures. He spent his days wandering the roads, meeting new people, and sharing stories. Curiosity got the better of the townsfolk, and soon enough, whispers spread about the newcomer. Some were suspicious, others intrigued, but all wondered why someone like him would choose their town as a stop on his journey. One afternoon, Callan wandered into Davian's bustling shop. The merchant eyed him with interest, noting the traveler's worn clothes and meager belongings. Sizing him up, Davian assumed that the traveler was another beggar looking for charity. Still, ever the businessman, Davian greeted him with a smile. "Welcome, stranger," Davian said, his voice dripping with hospitality. "What can I do for you today?" Callan smiled warmly. "Thank you, merchant. I've heard much about your fine goods. But more than that, I've heard of your wealth and success." Davian puffed up with pride. "It is true. Years of hard work have brought me riches beyond most men's dreams." "And what about you, traveler? What have you earned on your journeys?" Callan chuckled softly. "Not much in the way of gold or silver, but I've gathered stories, wisdom, and friendships. These have been enough for me." Davian frowned slightly. "Stories and wisdom don't put food on the table, gold does." "Perhaps," Callan said thoughtfully, "but I've found that gold can also be a burden if carried for too long." Davian waved his hand dismissively. "A burden? Wealth is freedom, my friend. With gold, you can buy anything: a comfort, security, power." Callan nodded but said nothing more on the matter. Instead, he pointed to a fine silk robe hanging in the shop. "That robe, yeah, it's quite beautiful. How much would you ask for it?" Davian's eyes narrowed. "More than a wanderer like you could afford, I'd wager." Callan smiled again. "What if I offered you a trade, then?" "You seem like a man who values a good deal." "A trade?" Davian raised an eyebrow. "What could you possibly have that would interest me?" "I'll tell you a story," Callan said, "and in return, if the story doesn't make you richer by the end, I will pay you double the value of the robe." Davian laughed heartily. "A story? For silk worth more than gold?" "You are either a fool or a very confident man." "Perhaps both," Callan replied with a wink. "But the offer stands." Intrigued by the traveler's boldness, and confident that no story could enrich him more than his goods, Davian agreed to the trade. He handed the silk robe to Callan and settled in to hear the tale. Callan began. "Once, there was a wealthy merchant much like yourself, who had amassed great riches through trade and clever deals. One day, while traveling to a distant city to expand his fortune, the merchant was caught in a violent storm. His caravan was swept away, and he found himself alone, without food, shelter, or money. Desperate, he wandered the wilderness until he came upon a small village. The people there were poor, living simply off the land, but they welcomed him with open arms. They shared their food, gave him shelter, and nursed him back to health without asking for anything in return. As the days passed, the merchant observed the villagers. They had little in terms of material wealth, yet they were content. They shared everything with one another through food, work, and joy. Despite their hardships, they were at peace. The merchant, however, could not understand their way of life. Before he left, the merchant offered the villagers gold in exchange for their kindness, but they refused. What will we do with your gold?" they asked. "It cannot grow food, build shelter, or heal wounds. What we have is enough." Perplexed, the merchant continued his journey, his gold untouched, and his mind filled with questions. Over time, he realized that the wealth he had once cherished now felt like a burden. He had spent his life accumulating things that gave him power but no peace. He had mistaken wealth for happiness, when true wealth lay in relationships, kindness, and community. Callan paused, watching Davian's face. The merchant, who had initially seemed amused, now looked thoughtful. Callan continued, "When the merchant returned to his city, he began to change. He still ran his business, but he no longer hoarded his wealth. Instead, he shared it with those in need. He found joy not in how much he had, but in how much he could give." In time, he discovered that the more he gave, the richer he became, not in gold, but in a sense of fulfillment and peace. Callan leaned back, his story finished. "And so, merchant, I ask you, has my story made you richer?" Davian sat in silence, the weight of the traveler's words sinking in. For years, he had measured his success by the coins in his vault, but now, for the first time, he wondered if he had missed something far more valuable. "You may keep the robe," Davian said quietly. "Your story has indeed made me richer. But tell me, traveler, what do you truly seek?" Callan smiled, standing to leave. "I seek only to remind others that true wealth is not measured by gold, but by the connections we build and the kindness we share." "I leave you with that gift." As Callan walked away, Davian looked around his shop, filled with fine goods and riches. He realized that despite all he owned, there was more he could give. And so, from that day forward, he began to share his wealth with the townspeople, discovering that in giving, he had gained something far greater than gold. He had gained peace. True wealth lies not in accumulation but in what we give, and in the kindness we share with others. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.